Hello and thank you for joining us for Evolve TV, where we uncover the secrets of how aftermarket workshops can improve, optimise and systemise their businesses. I'm your host Jason Owen, and in this episode we're going to be talking about how you can help your customers select the best brake pads for their needs. To share this with us, we're joined by our special guest Ian Campbell, who is the product manager over at Bendix. As part of the leading Evolve workshop program by Mechanic.com.au, Evolve TV helps aftermarket workshops discover how to become more connected with the marketplace, their customers, their staff, as well as other leading aftermarket workshops. Learn how to leverage digital platforms and tools as well as best business practices in order to run a more efficient and innovative automotive service and repair business. This is Evolve TV. Welcome to the show, Ian. Good to have you here.
Thanks, Jason. I really appreciate the opportunity to come along and be involved.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into the first question because it's a good one. What's probably the most important factors for motorists when it comes to choosing their vehicle brake pads?
Yeah, a really good question. Most people, actually, the most feedback we get is around noise and around dust. So as long as the performance is okay, people get used to it. But people don't like dirty wheels and they don't like screeching noises when they back out of the driveway in the morning.
No one does.
No, it's not much fun.
Now, many vehicle workshops fit standard replacement pads to their customer vehicles, but this is not always the best way to go.
No, not always. So look, there's always some trade-offs with the standard part, and for a lot of, that's what the OEs do. The OEs will try and capture as, a big group of people that'll be happy with the product. But it's when you start to look at the extremes, I suppose, so how different people use their vehicles, and that's when you've got to start looking at different options.
We are a wide brown land.
Absolutely.
We have lots of different driving styles, don't we?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I mean, I think Australia is the most diverse car park in the world if you look at the amount of different vehicles we have, and if you look at the climates and if you look at the terrain. So if you're in the highlands of Tasmania, it's a really different place than in the outback of WA. So your requirements are different. If you're urban and you're driving around town in your Porsche, is a whole lot of a different requirement than if you're towing a dirty big caravan with your Land Cruiser going up north. So again, you've got to meet all the requirements of what the vehicle's used for, what the vehicle is, and more importantly, how it's driven.
Now, Ian, this next question is a tricky one. Can you have the best of all the worlds in one brake pad?
Yeah, look, I think some of the OEs try and do that, but the short answer is no. So unfortunately not. Like everything, you get nothing for nothing. So often if you want higher performance, it might actually wear more, or you might end up with some of the materials, the European materials for instance, really good at high performance, high speed, autobahn type work. Don't work so well here because we don't go that fast, we're not allowed. So there's always a trade-off. So it might be price, it might be performance, it might be noise, it might be dust. Kind of pick 2 or 3 that you like out of 5, and that's kind of what you can have.
I'm sort of thinking maybe like a Toyota Camry, middle-of-the-range car that can do a bit of everything. That's probably about as close as you're going to get to the ultimate pad.
Yeah,
really, isn't it?
Well, that's it. And look, a Camry does a lot of things well, but it won't tow a 20-foot caravan. No good in the bush. I've tried, but so it's a trade-off. So if the average of averages, a lot of things will be fine. And again, we've got product that fit that middle ground as well. It meets most people's most every day. But again, if you're a tradie and you're carrying a lot of load, or you use your vehicle in different ways, then again you've got to look outside the box a little bit and find the right product for the vehicle and the customer.
Well, here's an interesting extra question on top of that.
Yep.
If we have our benchmark, which is cost, affordability and so forth, where are you seeing people swaying more to what they want more of from a pad? Is it the affordability, or is it performance, or is it dust?
Yeah, it probably comes a little bit down to the, again, still application specific. So what people care about. So no one likes dirty wheels. So you spend a lot of money, particularly if you've upgraded your wheels and on your vehicle. So you certainly don't want to have those turn black. Dust is one of those things that, again, it's just, you wash your car on a Saturday, by Tuesday if it's dirty, no good. Yeah. Noise is another factor. So there's a certain performance car in Australia, that fantastic Australian-built performance vehicle, that from cold, the first 3 stops, it is as noisy as anything I've ever heard, particularly going backwards. So these people have these awesome cars that any one of us would want, back it out of your driveway every morning and you wake up all your neighbours. So again, you got some of those things.
That might be a ploy to let people know you own that car, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's good noise and bad noise though. If it's the exhaust noise, different story, but brake noise is not something that any of us really like.
Never has been.
No. So again, it's, dust and noise are the two things that we get complaints from, and that's the thing that we work the most on. So we have a local engineering team. They spend a lot of time on that. And then the other thing now is we're seeing lots of four-wheel drives, and there's a whole opportunity around as people move into that space.
So what are some of the things we need to consider about our customers' driving styles and the vehicles before we recommend brake pads?
Yeah, really good question, and it's probably something that it's often not the verbal cues that you get from your customer. It's maybe have a look at the vehicle. Is it loaded up with big racks? Does it have a big tow bar on the back? Has it been modified? Does it have extra weight? Or is it, the suburban Camry? So the suburban vehicle, people are just going to be looking for something that'll be, keep their wheels clean. It'll be quiet in operation. They'll get good value for money. The brake pedal feels nice. Literally, they'll go away, and if they don't think about it, they're going to be really happy. So no negatives, very positive.
Problem solved.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, tradie van might be a different story. You need something else. So it's just about making some of those visual cues, and then also having a look as, a young buck in a Corolla is probably going to be driving it a whole lot different from how my mum would drive her Corolla. So,
well, it's funny you say that because I have a 17-year-old son. He has a Lexus, an IS 250.
Nice.
It's black. It looks fantastic. But he also has a P plate.
Yes.
And so after the first round of driving for a couple of months, I took him aside and I said, listen, I need to show you your car. I said, because you're now a cop magnet.
Absolutely.
And he was very, what are you talking about, Dad? I'm a good driver. And he is a good driver. I said, it's obvious you're the last of the late breakers.
Yes.
I said, because we can look at the two different wheel colours.
Yes.
What is the front wheel telling you? And he went up and he touched it with his finger, and of course all the brake dust comes off. And so I then got him to actually research dust-free brake pads. And he came up with a Bendix product.
Awesome.
He has that in the car right now. This is not leading up to this conversation, but it just happened to happen in the last couple of months.
Excellent.
And he now takes great delight in saying to me, look, Dad, I don't brake heavy. I said, no, it's because you've got the right brake pads.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, look, and it makes a big difference. And I've had exactly the same scenario. I had in a past life, had a GDI Golf. Loved it. It's great fun to, hoon around town in. But, literally I could wash the car on a Saturday. By Tuesday, not only were the front wheels black, but half of the front of the car was as well. So
maybe that's why people paint their wheels black.
Yeah, could be. Doesn't look the same though.
The next question is a really topical one. We're heading towards the end of the year, the Christmas break. What brake pads are going to be best for a vehicle that's loaded up, or a four-wheel drive, or somebody towing? What's the best way to choose a pad for that environment, but at the same time, you're going to unhook and drive normally?
Yeah, really good question actually, Jason, because it's the full drive space and the that light commercial vehicle space. It's the fastest growing segment in our car park. So if you look at top 10 every month, Hilux, Ranger, Land Cruisers in there, Prados in there, and it's since we've lost Holden, Ford and Toyota locally, those vehicles are really high up in the sales and in the car park. So, but they're all used differently. So we almost need, we do have segments within four-wheel drive. So we've now seen people in, a Prado, it's the family wagon, it's come out of a territory, we've gone into a Prado. And again, it's similar to around town, so you want quiet operation, dust-free. Then the next level, we've got a couple of different segments. So we've got the tradie dual cab ute. So often it's loaded up with tools and equipment and whatever.
Very heavy.
Absolutely. Loaded up during the week, off to job sites and doing all those sorts of things. Come the weekend, tools come out, the boat might go on the back or the jet ski might go on the back, and it's then used as a family truckster. So again, you've got this vehicle that's going from being used very heavily, probably around town, so you've got lots of stop-start. So our Bendix HD, we recommend that for that application. It's
because those cars are also spending time at a job site, and they're a very heavy vehicle.
Yes.
They'll jump in the vehicle cold, without it being warmed up, without driving around, drive half an hour to the next job, and they've got a couple of big stomps on the brake.
Absolutely.
Stop, cool down, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, and that's it, and that's what that pad's designed for. So it's designed for constant high temperature use. So we see that it's a similar material. We put it in, courier vans and those sorts of things. And again, it works well in a high temperature environment. And then when you're not loaded, it still feels fine. It still feels usable.
It's interesting seeing some of these manufacturers as well. This conversation and this question is very specific about choosing the right brake pads. But when you pull up at lights now, you always look at the brakes because you can see them through the rims.
Yes.
And these new four-wheel drives and SUVs, they're getting big brake packages, aren't they?
They're starting to, yeah. And so that was one of the challenges we had up until this last couple of generations of vehicles, is that if you look at let's say an early PX Ranger, the size of the brakes on that is much smaller than what you had on a Falcon on a heavier car. So that brake's working a lot harder than it ever did in a Falcon Ute, for instance. So, it's only now that the new Ranger, we're actually starting to get back to, dare I say, Falcon type brakes.
Yeah.
It's remember, they've still got drum brakes on the rear, and so the front's doing all the work. So
and leaf springs.
Yeah, correct. And you're paying for it. So, so it's an interesting, and those dual cabs too, there's another segment that we're starting to see, which is partly the dual cabs, but also things like, Land Cruiser and Nissan Patrol wagons, where people will load them up. They will fit a bull bar, you'll fit a draw system, you'll fit, fridge and slides and dual batteries and all these other things. And it's really easy to add 500 to 800 kilos to it.
That's huge.
That's it before you do anything. So what happens is people will go and say, right, I'll do a suspension upgrade so I can carry the load so it's not dragging its bum. And then guess what? If you put 800 kilos extra on your car, it doesn't quite stop the same as it did when it came from the factory. So we've got an ultimate four-wheel drive pad and program that goes with that. So again, and those really heavy towing. So we're seeing, people buying bigger and bigger caravans. You're seeing caravans at 3 tonne.
Yeah.
You're seeing the vehicle loaded up with an extra 800 kilos
and
on it.
You're seeing them above the vehicles now, especially the four-wheel drive ones with the raised chassis on the caravans.
Yes.
And they're creating almost an air brake.
Yes.
Which really does obviously draw on the car, but then when you're slowing down, it's not helping.
No, correct. I mean, you do have brakes on the trailer. It's a legal requirement, but still, even with the brakes on the trailer, you've still got extra weight on the vehicle, the extra downforce from the tow ball, so from the drawbar of your caravan.
Yeah.
And so then you've just got this mass. When you stop and think of the numbers, it could be 6.5 tonne rolling down the road.
You don't want to get it wrong, do you?
No, you don't.
You don't want to get it wrong.
And so that's the trade-off. It's sometimes you spend a lot of money on those vehicles and what you tow, you're probably worth spending a few more dollars on your brakes, and just make sure that whole combination is working as best as it can.
So this question obviously comes a little bit later than when we talked about my son, but if the people are worried about dust on their wheels, which has really been something that's been decades in the making, what pad would you think would be the best selection today in 2022?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question actually, and actually what we're seeing out of Europe is brake dust is actually being seen as a bit of a nasty. So they're banned diesels because of the diesel particulate. They're now looking at brake dust. So European vehicles traditionally had very dusty brakes. It was part of being able to deal with those Autobahn type environments. But what we see is you buy a European car in Australia, you can't do 220 kilometres an hour. So, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, our Bendix Euro Plus pad works really well for your European vehicle in the conditions how we drive them in Australia. It's still ECR 90, so it meets the standard of the stopping performance, but no dust.
Right.
No dust, low dust. So
what is the dust attributed to?
There's a couple of things actually, depending on the material. So a lot of the dust is actually, because those European pads are so abrasive, they're actually taking parts of your rotor off as you go. So part of it is dust from, imagine sandpaper on sandpaper. Yes. So you've got the dust from the pad, but you've also got, imagine tiny little metal filings from mixing together, and then that becomes a paste, and that again becomes abrasive. And again, that's why European cars, they wear out brake rotors really fast as well, because those pads are so aggressive. So again, Euro Plus, it's a ceramic material, and what it does, it works a little bit differently. Essentially, it puts a film onto your rotor, and that film causes some friction against the pad. And so you should actually get 3 or 4 sets of pads out of one set of rotors.
Wow, okay. So we've covered off the dust. Let's talk about the extreme driving and maybe focus on the high performance vehicles, because there seems to be a lot of people now well, with daily cars that are able to achieve great driving, but also people with a weekend car.
Yep.
And they're investing in that driving experience.
Absolutely.
How do you handle that?
Yeah, look, performance again, without trying to slice and dice too many categories, different people want different things out of their performance vehicle. So if you're off doing a track day, if that's your thing, you're part of a car club and you're doing car club track days, you probably want something like SRT. So it's a very high performance pad. It still feels nice on the street. It's got good pedal feel. It will be dusty. There's a trade-off.
Yep.
Probably potentially maybe a little bit of noise when it's cold. And now we're now seeing a lot of people then that have a performance car. They're not interested in going down, to the racetrack or whatever. They're just more about, let's go and do the coast road. Let's go for a drive in the hills. We might be a bit of spirited driving, and then it's the daily driver from Monday to Friday. So we care more about, low dust, low noise, keeping our wheels clean, not waking up the neighbours when we're back out in the morning. So Ultimate Plus, we've developed a range of pads with a new formulation, Ultimate Plus, exactly for performance vehicles.
Yeah.
It gives you the same braking feel and experience as a really high performance pad. It's not a track day pad, wouldn't recommend you go out on the track with it, but round town, really spirited driving on the road within the laws and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Feels nice and good pedal feel and
it's good to have the range. It's good to know that you can go, well, hey, hang on, I'm going to shift you to this category.
Yeah.
Look, you're a double XL, but mate, you actually can take the XL in this one, and you can really shift people through.
Correct. Yeah, and it's even you look at how different people will drive their cars. So you might have someone with a Mustang. Okay, look at a Mustang Club or whatever, and it might be anyone from a 25-year-old female who loves going and doing a track day to an older gent that just loves the look and the sound and the noise. And
that's probably where our workshops, and in a moment we'll talk about that, but they can really start to connect with their clients by saying, hey, listen, this is what we've put in.
Absolutely.
If you feel you want more, come back and see us.
Yeah.
And we'll upgrade you again.
Yep.
And that connection is where the workshops are going to be able to benefit, aren't they?
Absolutely. Look, it's like buying a pair of shoes, do you like black or brown, or where are you going to go? Are you want something to go and work in the paddock, or do you want something to go to the disco? So it's about getting the right thing for the right application and the right driver, and making sure that they go away happy.
So far, Ian, all the questions have been extremely topical, but I think the next one really does hammer home 2022. Now,
Absolutely.
Bendix have an EV hybrid range, but what are you seeing the differences or maybe requirements that these vehicles are bringing to Bendix?
Yeah, it's interesting. And, we took a step back, we thought about it. Early in 2020, our lease company that gives us, supplies our company vehicles, said, look, would you guys like to drive an EV for a while? So I ended up having an EV for a month just to get a feel of what's important. And what ended up coming to the top was these things are really quiet. So there's noise, vibration, harshness, so your NVH, very, very, very low. So you've got this really quiet driving experience in this vehicle. And the last thing you want, again, is noisy brakes. The other thing is a very different driving experience. So the EV you've got, and you can change the amount of regen braking you have, but you can actually have a really high level of regen braking. So your brake pads aren't doing a lot of the time. So unless you're really stomping on it around town or whatever, most of the suburban driving, you're only using the brakes from the last maybe 2 car lengths as you come up to the traffic lights.
Right, okay.
Or if someone pulls out in front of you and you need to jump on the brakes.
Yep.
So what's happening is the brakes are cold. So you actually need good performance from cold because you're not on it the whole time.
And quiet.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Quiet and low dust. So they're the areas that we've really spent some time.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. It is a very new market, and we're very much early days.
Yeah.
It's like the beta before we went VHS, and we're now going towards CDs.
Yeah.
And we don't really know what's happening because they're obviously giving us the technology. You talk about the regenerative braking side of things. Do you have any idea of sort of kilometerage longer that you're getting in
again, it comes down, I'll give you 2 examples. So I ask every Uber driver when I get an Uber, because they're mainly hybrid Camrys, how long do your brakes last? And I've had quite a few guys say to me, probably, but more than, so they're not prompted, but about 200,000 Ks before they'll look at the brakes on a hybrid Camry.
Wow.
Okay, so that's, remember these are Uber drivers, so it's about, how do I do this without, lowest fuel use, lowest tyre wear, all those things. So they're driving very carefully, very gently, and they're getting 200,000 Ks before they look at it.
Wow.
So on the flip side, I saw an article, Tesla Model 3 Performance. Went out and did some track work on Laguna Seca in the States. 6 laps, so brand new car, 6 laps, metal to metal. So because you've got that big mass, it's a heavy car, lots of performance, and then when you get it really hot, then again, you're back to really high performance requirements.
That's something that we don't probably take into consideration is that we think about that, but they are, especially EV vehicles, are extremely heavy.
Absolutely.
You know, they do have a low centre point of gravity, so you have that confidence of going, hey, this handles well. Yeah. But sometimes the brakes, if you're not thinking about what you've got there, you can go through them quick.
Correct. So, and we're finding EVs, it's not one market, so it's depending on what people want out of it. So, there's people that are buying EVs because some of them have fantastic performance. It'll absolutely, blow your mind performance. Other people are buying it because, it's cheap to run and it's quiet and, fits that ecological mindset. Yeah. So, again, even within that need to ask the questions, but most people we're seeing in EVs and hybrids, again, they're looking, it's a quiet vehicle, it's a suburban driven vehicle. So, just like that nice, quiet driving experience. So.
It's an interesting one, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
All right, so this is an interesting question for you. Yep. Can you give us an update of maybe, say, some of those questions that we probably really should be asking our customers when it comes time to brake selection?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's quite a few things there. Obviously, a couple of the visual cues, if you like. Yeah. So what is the vehicle? Yeah. Have a little bit of a look at the person. Do they look like they're a conservative dresser? Did they come into a handbrake, turn into your driveway when they drop the car off, skid up the street or whatever? So have a look at that. But there's normally a couple of questions that are pretty straightforward. So, ask them what their key care abouts are. Is it performance? Is it noise? How do you use your vehicle? What do you use it for on the weekends? And those sorts of things, you can quickly, within 2 or 3 or 4 questions, you can lead your customer down the right path. And the other thing too is to talk to them about, sometimes the cheapest is not the best option. No. So it could be a bit of a false economy.
I think some of the workshops are probably also maybe thinking to themselves, well, listen, if I change what they've got already, I could be introducing a problem to the scenario. But the reality of it is, with the right question, you can actually enhance somebody's enjoyment of a vehicle that they're already used to.
Absolutely.
And they suddenly go, what brake pads did you put in this?
Correct.
They're fantastic.
Correct, yeah. Yeah. No, we've had a scenario, actually. I had a customer had a 79 Series Land Cruiser, so big, heavy vehicle. It had brakes done. Customer took off down the street, and literally 2.5 minutes after he left the workshop, he was on the phone, and the guys in the workshop going, what's going on here? And they said, I just want to say thanks. This thing's awesome. It's never stopped like this before. So, you can actually, and they probably our most expensive pad in that vehicle, and it makes a difference, and it makes a difference for that application. So, if you look at something like a 79 Series Land Cruiser, they start at $80,000. And most of them have got $40,000 or $50,000 worth of accessories. And for him, another $50 in brake pads, not even bat an eye.
It's interesting because of the driving sensors, you can steer, you can accelerate, but the most important one is the ability to stop. And that's probably not celebrated as much as it should be.
No, correct. So look, it's something that we're trying to bring some awareness about. So, and you don't necessarily need to spend a lot of money to get a braking improvement. So, it's not unusual for somebody with a Ford Ranger or a Toyota Hilux to put it on the dyno to get another 15 kilowatts, So it'll cost $1,000, $1,500 for an afternoon on the dyno to get an extra 20 horsepower. But, would you spend $100 for better braking? Probably, if they said, you know what, you've got a better option. So,
so that's an interesting one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are the benefits for workshops recommending the application-specific brake pads for customers? And indeed, what support does Bendix offer the workshops in doing that?
Absolutely. From a workshop perspective, what you really want is your customer to go away happy. So if your customer ends up having a good experience, he has some questions asked, shows a bit of interest in, hey, this guy actually cares about me and my vehicle, and they end up going away and having a great experience or not having a negative experience. That's probably even more important. Then you'll end up with that customer coming back. I took my car to Bob's workshop. Bob did an awesome job. I drove out. The car felt fantastic. It felt smooth and quiet, and loved it. So that's really important. And you'll also get, word of mouth referrals. Hey mate, I went to Bob's, did a great job. So so it's about getting that happy return customer, positive return customer. No one wants to see a car come back a week after they've had it in their workshop, because if you're lifting the bonnet twice or you're putting it on the hoist twice, that second time you're not getting paid for it.
And if there's 3 points for a customer to be happy, which is go, steer and stop.
Yep.
And you're investing in that. Well, all you're doing is giving yourself a 33% chance of having a better outcome.
Absolutely. Yeah, correct. And that's exactly right. So it's all of those aspects of a vehicle. So, does it feel nice and smooth after it's been serviced? Does it when I back out of the driveway in the morning, do I wake up the neighbours or not? So so all of those sort of things. So
the workshops that are doing that, what sort of support do you guys give them?
Yeah, so a fair bit actually. So we've got field sales support and product support guys in each state. So most states there's 2 or 3. We get involved in a lot of trade nights and those sorts of things through our distributors. They all come and visit a workshop. So if there's a problem vehicle, you can actually ring. We have a call centre in Ballarat. So
that's important. That's very important.
Absolutely. So so if you don't know your local rep, your local Bendix field sales manager, make the opportunity to try and find him. You'll track them down at various trade events or whatever. Or if you've got some help you need or a tricky customer, you can get onto our call centre in Ballarat and they'll put you in touch.
And your products are Australian designed.
Yep.
And that if that doesn't give these workshops confidence to when they ask the question, knowing, well, hey, behind me is all this R&D.
Absolutely.
And engineering.
Yeah, look, it's really interesting, and we've got the only brake dynos in the Southern Hemisphere.
Right.
So we can simulate braking performance from anything from a moped through to a B-double truck, discs and drums. We do a lot for OE still, so not just in Australia, but in other parts of the world. So we can actually go and set up different repeatable tests. So you can get that performance. So if there's, I want a little bit more here and I want it to be a little bit softer here or whatever, you can, the boffins go away, they get their different fairy dust out and then go and test it.
Put their bash together. Well, I think if you're standing at the customer service desk and you're talking to a client and you're asking those questions, you've got to have the confidence to know you've got something behind you.
Absolutely.
The Bendix brand is an extremely good name. There is a lot of solutions by the sounds that's available, and the product range is changing by the minute.
Yeah, look, it's interesting, and to be fair, a lot of it has come around from feedback that we get from customers and people. So, we started off in 1955 making brake pads and shoes, lined shoes for that matter, for OE. We're now predominantly aftermarket, and it's about mainly solving issues with vehicles. So certain vehicles have noisy brakes, certain vehicles have dusty brakes, certain vehicles wear out brakes really fast, even from factory. So we'll take that feedback and, try and then, come up with some solutions that work for Australian conditions and Australian climates and Australian drivers and all those sorts of things. So it's very, very much tailored for the market here.
And New Zealand.
Absolutely. Definitely New Zealand. So, look, and I was over there only a week or so ago, and they're a different environment as well and a different car park. So, very interesting market and some unique needs.
So to our workshops out there, these guys have seen the scenario. They've seen the problems, they've seen the issues, and if you're facing one, do not hesitate to reach out because you're ready to help. So I've got one extra question I'm going to give you because it's one that's happening in Australia right now, and it's been happening for the last 10 years. And it's to do with classic cars, not vintage, but classic. I'm talking the 60s, 70s, 80s, and early 90s. We're talking about cars that didn't quite have the performance specifications that they really needed to mix it in today's traffic. But these are vehicles that are going $100,000, $200,000 almost overnight.
Yep.
The requirements, obviously, for replacement parts, improvement parts, is that something you're involved in?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, it's interesting. As a manufacturer, for the local market, we need to have a really big scale of what we can do. So we have manufacturing where we can build 30 sets of pads.
Right.
So for instance, if you've got, MGB, we can build, I don't know how many would sell, 50 sets a year or something like that. We've got those there, and you can probably have them in a couple of different flavours. So, some people in an MGB just want to keep those nice chrome spokes nice and shiny.
So you can have the pad that's the same, but you can have the mixture different.
absolutely. Different. So we call it a formulation, or the easiest way to think of it is in those sub-brands. So quite often what we're trying to say with those sub-brands is what's in the box, what it says on the box is what's in the box and is what it does. So, things like an MGB, I think standard was 60 horsepower. Stick a couple of Webbers on it and extractors, and you could probably easily double it or a bit more. So again, classic racing, for instance, even look at HQ racing. It's a very popular pad that we still make.
I saw an interesting one the other day. I think there's more VL Commodore walking shores now than there was ever made before.
Absolutely,
And replicas are ridiculously
XYGTs and all that sort of stuff.
And those vehicles, they did have certain brake upgrades from factory.
Yes.
Now they were a limited make to start off with. Now there's a high proliferation of them, lots more.
Yeah.
That then really puts the pressure on you guys, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it does. But, so we, and the technologies, the manufacturing technologies for pads and, materials that you can use has changed as well. So the world's moved on, and the world of brakes has moved on. And exactly as you say, even the speed of the traffic is a whole lot more cut and thrust than it was in the 70s. Yeah. So, you've got to keep up with modern times. Yeah. But then there's also a lot of people that just want to keep that vehicle looking original.
Yeah, and Bendix is a name that's been around for a long time. And the people who were back then with those cars knew your brand back then.
Yes.
Obviously had different logos and slogans and everything else in between. But here they are now with the disposable income to say, well, I'm going to drop 250 on one of these cars. Put Bendix brakes on it.
Absolutely. Well, we probably made the pads for it when it was new, particularly if it was made in this country. So, but now we've got some other options. We can put some more modern materials. It's good to know
that part of the market's covered, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, you spend a lot of money on a car. You want to go and have a nice driving experience.
Thank you very much for coming along, Ian. I hope you've enjoyed it. And to everybody who's watching, I hope you've got a lot of value out of this episode of Evolve TV.